Right, so as you may or may not know, the Amiga, the classic Amiga, is probably one of my favourite sort of computers of my youth, and it brings back so many good memories for me. And one game that I kept coming back to, me and my two brothers at the time, was it's quite a little known game actually, Moonstone.
Ooh, Moonstone.
It's a game where it's kind of passed a lot of people by, but the people that have played it, I can't speak for everyone, but the people that have played it, I think mainly think it's a bit of a classic, a game that's built up a bit of a cult following, and it's a game I would like to pay a bit of a homage to today, if you don't mind, sir.
Cult following, was that a pun?
No. Alright, so to give it its official title, it's actually called Moonstone, A Hard Day's Night.
But...
Now, well, the clever sort of pun there is night is spelled with a K. So I think we can kind of guess what sort of game this is about already. It's a sort of medieval kind of setting, kind of fantasy setting. It's a game, I think, on the face of it, if you just seen the clips of it, you think, oh, it's a hack and slash.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah.
Well, Keith's watched the little game.
I watched a bit of gameplay in the intro. Yeah.
But I would say that assumption, that way of thinking is probably wrong. Because I think there's lots of layers to this game. It's quite original, actually.
Okay.
Before I go right into the depth, let's get a bit of background information. Developed and published by Mindscape, of all people. Released in 1991, only on the Amiga and the DOS. And it was made by two prominent people. The whole game was really developed by two people, Todd Prescott and Rob Anderson. Now, let me try and set the scene. So it's a single-player game, or it can be a 2, 3, and 4-player game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the Amiga, that's quite rare, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, unusually though, it's going to be hard. How do I explain this, really? You can, even though it's up to a 4-player game, you kind of take it in turns. And there are 4 nights to choose from.
I saw that. I did see that, yeah.
There's 4 nights. Do you remember the colours in the nights by any chance?
There's a blue one.
The blue one.
Red one?
Red one.
There is not a red one.
Ah.
Oh, there is. Sorry, I take it back. There is a red one.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
There's a green one.
There's a green one. And what's the last colour?
Yellow?
Nope.
Forget the other one.
Black?
Nope.
Oh, I forget that one.
Orange.
Oh,
And if I had to give names, I'll put the names to the colours. The blue knight is called Sir Godber. Sir Godber. The orange knight is Sir Richard. The green knight is Sir Geoffrey, and the red knight is Sir Edward. So if it's a 1-player game, you choose your knight. If it's a 2-player game, you choose your knights. And it's a kind of turn-based game at the start. You take it in turns. You're in 4 corners of this map, and there's a little bit like a typical sort of RPG. You walk towards a goal. You walk to areas.
It's quite simple, isn't it, that map?
It's a simple map. It's kind of the sort of...
It looks quite odd, like I had a little bit of a play on it back in the day.
Good.
And then but the map thing never really stood out. But I guess it's functional, as I'm sure that you'll go into.
Well, I think it works really well because there's 4 different areas of the map. It's kind of the grassland, the sort of sandy land, sort of water, sort of boggy land as well, sort of rocky area, and you walk around. Well, but let's go into the story a bit actually, because I think, and this is a bold claim, but I think actually Moonstone has one of the best intros for any game.
Oh yeah, great intro.
It's amazing. Did you get a chance to watch it?
I did. I watched it. It was good, and I really liked. Again, you probably mentioned it, but I really liked the music. The music
Brilliant.
was really fitting as well.
Really quite incredible music. Really quite intense, sort of medieval, fantasy.
It's really nicely animated as well.
What happens?
Well,
yeah, talk us through it.
Well, that's true. We should talk about the
Stonehenge
intro.
features in it, doesn't it? Or at least
You start from the sky, and it zooms down past the big trees, and then you see some druids walking past, and they're walking. I think it is Stonehenge actually. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I think it's definitely a place like Stonehenge. And there's obviously druids there. It seems like they carry out some weird sort of sacrifice or anything. Something big is about to happen, and they call you over as a knight. So you see your knight walking in, big drums in the background, and you are set a mission. You are set a mission basically to find and discover the Moonstone. And to get the Moonstone, you have to find the 4 keys. Once you get the 4 keys, you can access and you can defeat or try and fight the big boss in the end and get the Moonstone. We'll come to that a bit later. It is a very unusual game because it's got elements of hack and slash. A little bit like kind of Streets of Rage, but with swords. Kind of a bit more like Knights of the Round. If you
or Golden Axe.
Golden Axe kind of style is probably a better thing. But it's also turn-based as well. So you sort of take it in turns, walking around the map. There's also bits of you can pick up weapons and improve your skills. You have to explore different parts of the map, like I said. And it's when you get into the fighting scenes, it's just a single screen. It's just a single screen.
Yeah, I saw that.
Depending on what part of the map you are, will determine what sort of enemies you get. There's sort of different fancy enemies, and it's quite a well sort of played game in a sense. It's good action, good sort of different moves with these swords and so forth. I just really enjoyed it. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet, ridiculously gory game. One of the most glorious games ever
There was
made.
a lot of blood
I don't remember
splattering
many.
everywhere.
Yeah, I don't remember many gory games on the Amiga, but that one was pretty intense, isn't it? It's there is an option to turn it off, of course.
There
isn't there?
is an option to turn it off.
But,
and actually, this gore was kind of the thing that sort of drew people to it initially. Like, oh, look how gory this game is. But in a weird way, it's a bit of a double-edged sword there, a little bit of a pun.
Yeah.
It almost resulted in the game not really meeting its full potential or reaching future ports and other consoles, which I'll talk about later. So in a way, that gore factor was a big deal for a lot of people, but again, it kind of stopped it from really evolving, I think. Yeah, like I said, so RPG elements, you have to collect weapons, treasures, experience. And if you come across another knight, so if it's a 2 or 3 4 player game, you can fight each other, so 2 on 2. So you get that, yes, to fight each other. So one knight versus a knight, I should say, and you can kill each other, steal your...
you can take like the other guy completely out of the game, can't you?
You could, you
just
can.
like behead them and then like kind
That's
of load
right.
it up over him and go, okay.
It's kind of like Mortal Kombat, the finishing moves, isn't it? Some
It's a
very
bit.
gory finishing moves, heads being chopped off. And even though it sounds like a really sort of dark game, I do think some of the sort of goriness is kind of sort of Monty Python-ish. It's got that kind of very dark humour. Would you agree?
Ish. I don't think Monty Python had that much blood in it before.
That's pretty true.
It would have been out around probably around the time that Mortal Kombat was in the arcades, wouldn't it?
I was going to say, did you say 91 or 92?
91.
Yeah,
91.
Mortal Kombat was 92, I think.
MK made it to console 93, didn't it?
Right.
92, 93.
92 or 93.
I think
so
it's
yeah, the whole
92.
thing about the blood and that, it was still very
Would have put
controversial,
Nintendo
wasn't it,
on
at the time?
Well, I'm going to come to that. I just remember playing the game as a kid, and it was something quite magical about it, that kind of fancy element. You could go to the tavern and sort of do some gambling. You could,
I did see a bit of that, yeah.
You could do it. I just think it's a game that mixes lots of different elements together, which I think potentially is an ingredient that wouldn't work. You know, all these different elements of a game, little bits here and there, and you think, well, that can't really work very well, but it just kind of added to it, something a bit different, and it kept me coming back to the game often because it was hard, a very, very tough game. And I'll tell you that the scariest bit for me, if you're doing really well, you've got maybe 2 of the 4 keys, and you're doing really well, you've got strong power. All of a sudden, on the map, the dragon swoops by.
Oh no, the dragon thing.
Now,
oh my god.
If you fight the dragon, you've got to be ready.
You're dead, man.
Well, it's even if you're full power with the best weapons, that dragon is one tough dude to kill. I tell you,
Mofo.
I tell you, it's really quite a difficult challenge. But you have to kill that dragon, I think, to proceed. Like I said, get the 4 keys. You can finally get to the sort of middle guardian, which is sort of like a sort of ghostly queen sort of character. I loved it. You know, it was a. I was watching Slope's Games Room the other day. We're fans of, aren't we?
DJ Slope, yeah.
And he does a complete history of a lot of games. And I was watching the Splatterhouse complete history.
Yeah.
And he made a good point on that video. And he said, gore. Sometimes games were made around this sort of time or a little bit later. Gore before gameplay. And that got me thinking. I think that's a fair point. There's a lot of games, probably slightly after Moonstone to be fair, but are very sort of gore heavy.
Yep.
Yeah, blood. Then we'll worry about the gameplay. But I thought to myself, I was thinking, is there any games? And he made the point that Splatterhouse was a game that was different to that, and it really worked on the gameplay. I think Moonstone's the same. I think the gore, even though it's in your face, and probably was a 10-year-old at the time.
Yeah.
For me, I was quite 9-year-old.
Violent for
It was
10-year-olds.
probably was a bit violent for me, really, if I'm being honest. But I kind of looked past that towards the end. It was like, oh yeah, just a bit of gore, and it was just the game I often will come back to a lot. Okay, something quite magical about it. Now, the reason why it didn't really do so well is it was only released in Europe, I believe, on the Amiga and the DOS, like I said. And apparently, it was scheduled for a Mega Drive and SNES release.
Would have been
really?
amazing on the
Yeah.
Mega Drive.
I think the Mega Drive would have
could
been the
see
best
that.
console, wouldn't it, for it,
Yeah.
actually?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been like I forget that Mega Drive game. where you're like that kind of sorcerer person. It's quite gory.
The Immortal.
The Immortal.
Yeah, it's like an isometric dungeon game. You play as a wizard.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've played that. It's
It
those
must be
kind of
like the
exploding
Immortal.
heads and yeah.
Why do you think it was cancelled then? Why do you think it was never released on these consoles? There's a couple of reasons.
I don't believe it can have just been the gore then.
Well, I think it would. The gore might have stopped, like I said earlier, like a
Nintendo, yeah,
release.
but not.
Correct.
Like
Not
you know,
SEGA.
it's nice to have the option to turn off the gore, but then why would you have a version that's just not the gore? And I think the gore is kind of part of the violence behind it.
I agree.
There's not. I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't have gone on Mega Drive.
No.
I think it would have been amazing on the Mega Drive. I think it would have worked. I don't know whether they would have had to use a big cart for it.
Yeah,
But like a 24 meg one or something. But it would have still worked. Yeah.
So go on.
Tell us.
The main reasons, it was the gore.
Okay.
And I think if it was going to be released on the Mega Drive and the SNES, they obviously wanted it released in America.
Oh.
And at the time, America was kind of controlled. If you wanted to sell a game in America, it had to get to Toys R Us.
Yeah.
So what do you think
No
Toys R Us
way,
said?
Yeah, no
We're
blood.
not going to stock that game there.
No
So
chance.
as soon as Toys R Us said no, well,
That was it.
but then apparently they looked at the rest of Europe. But Germany said no as well.
Oh.
They're very strict still in Germany
They are.
though on what
Very, very
you
strict.
can and can't
Oh.
see, especially kids.
Come on, guys. Seriously.
Yeah, that's just thinking of the gaming scene in North America back then though. It doesn't strike me as a game that really would have appealed.
No, we've done,
To-
would have done amazing in the,
you know?
in the American market.
Yeah.
We would have loved it. I think, Mega Drive
Oh,
British
yeah.
gamers would have loved
In
it.
Europe and possibly Japan
But how much
as
money
well.
are you going to
But
make just out of us lot, Not.
Not loads.
I don't know,
But saying that, I still think the people that played it back in the day have got a big affinity for the game. Okay? It's a game that caught people's attention.
Yeah. So we had a chat with a super fan, didn't we?
Well, actually, I'm quite proud to say that we got to talk to Rob Taylor. Well, not arguably, I think it's pretty much clear. He's the biggest Moonstone fan on the planet.
Check the site, guys. Check the site.
It's a good little interview, and actually, this is dedication, right? He's made his own website dedicated to Moonstone. Let's be honest, that is huge, and it's called the Moonstone Tavern. So I think it's www.moonstonetavern.co.uk. Sorry, really, really good site, and he speaks about it in a lot more depth, a lot more sort of honour than I can give it, really. But please give it a chance. And actually, a couple little drawbacks of the game. Buggy, a very buggy game.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it was.
A lot of Amiga games were buggy.
They were. So halfway through the game, maybe let's say you're halfway through the game, you're doing really, really well. It would just stop working.
No.
You have to start from the beginning.
Ooh,
Man.
And actually, probably another
Ouch.
kind of link to that, and it's a slightly separate point. You can't save the game.
Oh, no.
You're
You're
Save
kidding
this
me?
out,
a big
I can't stand that. Not on games like that.
You can't save it, so you have to do it in one big sitting.
Wow. And how long would that take?
Couple of hours, I think, probably get through it.
Probably, yeah, a good few hours to get it through properly. So they're two big drawbacks of it, and it's a tough game as well. But it's a game that always brings me back, actually, And like I said, huge cult following, and actually one of the most collectible games on the Amiga.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and Amiga games aren't worth that much, are they? Really?
No, they're worth pennies, aren't they?
But-
They're falling apart.
Moonstone's the exception, my friend. It is worth quite a lot. If you can get a boxed version of the game, obviously not
Nice.
copied, you got a pretty penny there, Now there were rumours, and there still is some rumours actually, that a sequel could be on the cards.
Get it done, kickstart it, do it.
I know.
Just someone
Well,
do it.
You say Kickstarter. There was a Kickstarter campaign rumoured to. I think it actually happened for a little bit. It's kind of cancelled.
Oh.
So that
Poop.
if it does come back, I think that the game is a promise. The people that developed it, if it does come back, it will keep it sort of retro feel, kind of the 2D sort of retro feel.
We'll give you some money. Just do it.
I would definitely fund that Kickstarter. It's hard to play right now, isn't it? It's a hard game to play. Like I said, it's only
What's
really
up with
available
those
on Amiga.
rat things? The rat.
You remember the
things,
rat enemies?
And like the monsters in it are crazy. Like, who would walk through these forests?
Four brave knights.
Brave
Scary,
Knights,
man.
yeah.
Those monsters are scary. It just like gives another kids just wouldn't. No, what Toys R Us would have just like,
Well,
bye.
what was quite clever about it, I think every monster, every sort of demon that would attack you had its own kind of sort of death scene, and like I said about Mortal Kombat, and some of them were quite gruesome.
Yeah.
Like there's some huge, sort of beasts, I don't know, sort of bear sort of creatures that bite your head off, and
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's good. I think one downside I would say is that they like one type of creature always dies in the same way. Like,
True.
Like when you're kind of racking them up on the screen, like the rat guys,
yeah,
they're pretty much, when you finish them off, they all die the same way. And then sometimes you get them like kind of like they're on the floor and they're going "Ugh, ugh," and they're kind of bleeding out, which is a bit sick. But otherwise, they just kind of it gets a little bit for me. It gets a little bit samey sometimes. Yeah.
I guess that's the point. I suppose you could argue there's quite a lot of mixture of enemies in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I do take your point. Once you know how to kill one type of enemy, and you see him again.
Of course, with the thing where obviously you're halfway through the game, it stops. You got to start again. You're like,
man,
kill them rat guys again. Are you
So
serious?
it's so it's got that kind of grinding element where you have to go through defeating the same small enemies to level up.
You
but
have
they could have subverted that. They could have put in a password system or something.
Yeah, that's crazy. They
Amiga,
didn't have a password system.
Amiga games are like renowned for having a save facility. Get another floppy disk, save your game.
That's a massive downside.
A little tip as well, because I like to give a few little tips. Even though if you play a 2, 3, 4 player game and you're kind of against each other, me and my brothers had a little strategy. We played 3 player games. We'd have a night each. We wouldn't fight each other on purpose. We'd do our best to get all the collectibles, and then 2 of our knights would sacrifice ourselves towards the end, and one would grab all the keys.
Nice.
Would that make sense?
Very
so
nice.
kind of a team effort.
You can do a kind of a co-op thing.
So there's I don't think that's a fishy part of the sort of strategy.
I don't think the programmers wanted you to co-op it.
But we did. I think we have completed the game before. I think we did get to the final.
Nice.
We got back to Stonehenge with the Moonstone.
Nice.
But it's a difficult game, and like I said before, getting past the bugs and the potential of it closing down was quite a challenge in itself. So, yeah, it's just a game that I know is hard to play these days. But if you can somehow get an opportunity to play it, I'd recommend it.
Do it.
Yeah.
We don't like to endorse emulators, but you know,
sometimes it's
Amiga
the only way. You can experience.
You're not gonna see Moonstone banging around shops. So yeah, I think for this one, download.
You might have to travel to the moon and back to get that sort of. Sorry.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Well, enjoy.